Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most legendary rivalries in professional wrestling history, the epic battle between WWE and WCW. In the late 90s, as WCW tried to dethrone WWE as a major competitor, a revolution was happening in the world of wrestling. What happened at the end of this monumental rivalry? How did WWE triumph and buy WCW? And how did the invasion storyline begin? You'll find answers to all these questions and more in this video. If you're ready, let's dive right in. The competition between WWE and WCW was one of the most important and exciting periods in the history of professional wrestling. This rivalry lasted from the late 1990s until 2001 and captured the attention of millions of wrestling fans worldwide. The battle between WWE and WCW was not just a fight between two wrestling promotions, but a period that shaped the evolution of wrestling and its influence on pop culture. Here are the details of this major rivalry. WWE started in the 1950s as Capitol Wrestling Corporation, founded by Vince McMahon's father. In the 1980s, when Vince McMahon took control of the company, it transformed into a globally recognized sports entertainment company. During the 1980s, with stars like Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage, WWE, then known as WWF, made professional wrestling a mainstream form of entertainment. McMahon succeeded in turning wrestling into a larger entertainment experience, which allowed him to reach a wider audience. McMahon's strategy to grow WWF in the 1980s was based not only on acquiring wrestlers but also on bringing in top stars from rival companies. He transferred several major names from regional and local wrestling organizations like AWA, NWA, and Georgia Championship Wrestling. Randy Macho Man Savage was very popular in AWA, but McMahon brought him into WWF. Savage made a huge splash by winning the WWF Championship at WrestleMania 1985, becoming one of the biggest stars in WWE for a time. Ted DiBiase, who became famous in Mid-South Wrestling and NWA, was also recruited by McMahon to WWF. He gained massive fame as the $1 Million Man, one of McMahon's most significant signings. AWA was a major wrestling organization in the mid-1980s. However, McMahon's aggressive expansion strategy and the inclusion of stars like Hulk Hogan weakened AWA. McMahon brought AWA's best talents, such as the Iron Sheik, Greg Valentine, King Kong Bundy, and Rick Martel, to WWF, strengthening his roster. The key difference with WWF was its focus on not just wrestling as a sport, but adding dramatic storytelling, characters, and entertainment elements. This strategy helped WWF distinguish itself from traditional wrestling organizations and achieve great success. Events like WrestleMania also played a major role in making WWF globally popular. WCW was founded in 1988 after the acquisition of Jim Crockett Promotions and was later bought by Ted Turner, the owner of Turner Broadcasting. With Turner's financial backing, WCW became a major competitor. In the 1990s, WCW posed a significant threat to WWE and achieved great success globally. WCW focused on a more realistic style of wrestling, offering an alternative to WWF's more dramatic and storyline-driven approach. The signing of Hulk Hogan in 1994 was a major turning point. Hogan's transition from WWF to WCW reshaped the organization. His arrival, particularly with major storylines like the formation of NWO, New World Order, increased WCW's popularity and led to years of success. During this period, WCW challenged WWF with stars like Sting, Ric Flair, Goldberg, and Bret Hart. The Monday Night Wars era, 1995 to 2001, in 1995, WWF and WCW started airing their shows, Monday Night Raw and Monday Nitro, at the same time, marking the beginning of the Monday Night Wars. Both companies went head-to-head to capture each other's viewers. Initially, WCW had the upper hand. Hulk Hogan's formation of the NWO Group in 1996 was a pivotal moment that boosted WCW's ratings and attracted viewers. Hogan's transformation into a heel, villain, and the rise of NWO significantly contributed to WCW's audience expansion. In 1996 and 1997, WCW overtook WWF in weekly ratings, with Nitro's creative storylines and shoot-reel wrestling elements pushing the show to new heights. However, WWF underwent a major transformation in 1998. The company entered the Attitude Era with stars like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. Austin's rebellious character and WWE's edgier approach gained massive popularity, helping WWF reclaim its top spot. Alongside The Rock, Triple H, and Mankind, WWF produced successful storylines and began surpassing WCW. The Attitude Era marked a shift towards darker, more mature, and sometimes controversial character developments, with more freedom in storytelling. WWE embraced an edgier, more adult-oriented approach, pushing boundaries with content like nudity, violence, swearing, and other adult themes. This was a strategic move to appeal to a younger demographic. The Attitude Era ended in 2002 when WWF changed its name and adopted a more family-friendly content approach, marking the conclusion of the Monday Night Wars and WWE's dominant position in professional wrestling. The fall of WCW, 2000 to 2001, several factors contributed to WCW's rapid decline. Management mistakes. Ted Turner left the management of WCW to inexperienced people. Eric Bischoff initially found success, but poor management decisions and creative errors led to WCW's collapse. Vince Russo was hired as a creative director, but he couldn't prevent the company's downfall. Constant changes in leadership hindered the consolidation and stability of the company. Weak storylines and characters. WCW faced creative crises as it moved away from innovative storylines like the early NWO days. Many top stars retired, and fresh characters and storylines ran out. The roster grew, but WCW continued relying on older talent. Financial issues. By the late 1990s, WCW began to struggle with large debts and financial difficulties, which posed a serious threat to the company's future. Additionally, WCW's television deals weakened compared to WWF's agreements. In 2000, Turner Broadcasting merged with AOL, and WCW's future became even more uncertain. AOL Time Warner was uninterested in wrestling, hastening the company's decline. In 2001, WCW's owners decided to sell the company. This sale presented Vince McMahon with a major opportunity, marking a turning point in wrestling history, as the two rival companies merged. WWF purchased WCW. Differences between WWE and WCW. 1. Storytelling and characters. WWF embraced more dramatic storytelling and character-driven approaches, making it a more entertainment-focused company. WCW, on the other hand, was more focused on wrestling and athletic competition. 2. Management and business model. WWF, under Vince McMahon's leadership, developed a more strategic business model and transformed the company into a global entertainment brand. WCW, however, often focused on signing larger contracts, which led to financial instability. 3. Stars. WWF produced many legendary wrestlers, including Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, The Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and The Rock. WCW became a dominant wrestling organization by bringing in big names from other companies, especially Hulk Hogan. Conclusion. The purchase of WCW by WWF in 2001 marked the end of an era in the wrestling world. WWE has remained the leader of the wrestling world ever since and continues WCW's legacy. However, WCW's impact is still felt today, with iconic storylines like NWO continuing to resonate in wrestling. After WCW's closure, WWE signed many former WCW stars and revived several storylines. WCW's video library also became a valuable asset for Vince McMahon. WWE used WCW's past shows and legendary moments on platforms like WWE Network to build an extensive content archive. In conclusion, the rivalry between WWE and WCW was not just a business battle, but a pivotal period that influenced the evolution of professional wrestling. WWE ultimately won this battle, but WCW's contributions and legacy continue to shape the wrestling world today. Invasion Storyline, 2001. The Invasion storyline was a major and dramatic storyline that followed the end of the WWE, then WWF, and WCW rivalry in 2001. It was built around WCW and ECW uniting against WWE in an event called Invasion. However, there were significant challenges in the development of this story. In the summer of 2001, several wrestlers and executives from WCW started an uprising against WWF. This group became known as the Alliance. The leaders of the Alliance were Shane McMahon, Vince McMahon's son, and Paul Heyman, the former head of ECW. Shane McMahon, having taken over WCW from Ted Turner, led the charge against WWF. Shane McMahon showcased his rivalry with his father through this storyline. By buying WCW, Shane encouraged former WCW champions and wrestlers to join the Alliance and fight against WWF. Stone Cold Steve Austin, once the face of WWF and one of its most popular wrestlers, experienced a major shift during the Invasion period, joining the Alliance. His surprise defection to the Alliance was a shocking moment in wrestling history. His betrayal of WWF shocked fans, as Austin had always been a top star for the company. Austin's motivation stemmed from his anger towards Vince McMahon and his search for a change alongside WCW wrestlers. Austin, while fighting for the Alliance in matches and achieving major victories, also chose to stand against Vince McMahon. This not only deepened his character but also the storyline itself. Stone Cold's return was one of the most unforgettable moments of both the storyline and the Invasion angle. The Alliance was not only made up of WCW wrestlers but also included some wrestlers from ECW. In this way, WCW and ECW merged to form the Alliance. This group began launching an assault against WWF. ECW, founded in the early 1990s by Paul Heyman, was an organization known for its radical wrestling style. It earned the name Extreme because it was much more violent, bloody, and daring compared to traditional wrestling. ECW had much lower budgets than WWE, than WWF, and WCW, but it created a significant cultural impact through its alternative wrestling style and the innovative atmosphere created by independent wrestlers. ECW's champions and superstars like Raven, Terry Funk, Tommy Dreamer, Sabu, Rob Van Dam, Sandman, and Chris Jericho carved out strong reputations for themselves in the wrestling world. However, ECW struggled with financial difficulties and management issues. Despite these challenges, Paul Heyman managed to position ECW as a major alternative to WWE and WCW at one point. By 1999, ECW had gained great popularity but was also in serious financial trouble. Paul Heyman searched for many solutions to keep ECW alive, but due to debts and insufficient income, the organization was finding it difficult to sustain itself. ECW's TV deals were insufficient, and much of the company's revenue came from independent wrestlers' low wages and ticket sales. By the early 2000s, ECW's situation had worsened. In a market dominated by WWF and WCW, ECW was struggling to survive. During this period, WWF, now WWE, began considering buying ECW. The acquisition of ECW was part of WWF's plan to defeat both WCW and ECW, as they wanted to rid themselves of both major rivals. In 2001, WWF bought ECW. The acquisition soon resulted in ECW ceasing to operate. Paul Heyman left ECW during the sale process, but the company's legacy was taken over, especially by WWE. ECW's superstars began joining WWF. WWF integrated some ECW wrestlers into its roster, and we started seeing names like Rob Van Dam, the Dudley Boys, Taz, Tommy Dreamer, Raven, and Rhino on WWE programs. During this period, ECW's style was somewhat softened and adapted to WWE television. However, WWF sought to incorporate ECW's raw spirit into its product. Shortly after the acquisition, WWE's storytelling began to incorporate the brutality and extremism of ECW. Hardcore matches and violent content appeared in WWE programming, sometimes carrying ECW's influence. Additionally, some of ECW's storylines and characters inspired WWE's new narratives. In 2006, WWE turned ECW into a brand and relaunched the ECW television program. Initially, the show aimed to recreate the old ECW atmosphere, but over time, it became more aligned with WWE's own style. To old ECW fans, this signified the loss of the true ECW spirit. ECW's impact continued to show up in WWE's evolving storylines and hardcore wrestling style. WWE started holding more intense matches, extreme bouts, and bloody contests using ECW style. Particularly at major events like Royal Rumble and Survivor Series, it was common to see ECW-style matches. After the acquisition, many of ECW's former wrestlers found success in WWE and even won major titles, such as the WWE Championship. By using these stars, WWE continued to keep ECW's legacy alive. WWF's purchase of ECW was a major turning point in professional wrestling. While it marked the end of ECW, it allowed WWE to absorb more superstars. ECW's tough, innovative wrestling style left its mark on WWE's big events and shows. However, for old ECW fans, this acquisition represented the loss of the true ECW spirit. WWE's acquisition of ECW also solidified WWE's dominance in the wrestling world. After buying WCW, this step pushed WWE further toward becoming the sole authority in professional wrestling. Nonetheless, ECW's legacy continued to have a lasting impact on WWE, and its cultural influence remained significant for both new wrestlers and fans. At the beginning of the invasion, the alliance, formed by WCW and ECW, was quite powerful. Shane McMahon and Paul Heyman, as leaders representing WCW and ECW, were trying to weaken WWF. The inclusion of Stone Cold Steve Austin and Booker T in the alliance posed a serious threat to WWF's dominance. The alliance members often worked together as a team. For example, the Dudley Boys, Kurt Angle, Rob Van Dam, and others worked together in tag matches and various confrontations. Their teamwork enabled them to defeat WWF stars like The Rock and Kane with great difficulty. WWF consistently resisted the alliance, with big names like The Rock, Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho, and The Undertaker defending WWF's honor. These wrestlers faced off against the alliance's biggest names in epic battles to protect WWF's pride. The greatest confrontation of the invasion storyline took place at Survivor Series 2001 in the Alliance vs. WWF match. This match held significant meaning for both sides. In the end, WWF won and the Alliance disbanded. This elimination match featured both sides putting their best wrestlers forward. The high stakes of the match were whether the Alliance would survive or if WWF would regain its supremacy. In the end, The Rock and Kurt Angle eliminated the remaining members of the Alliance, securing WWF's victory. This victory symbolized WWF's defeat of both WCW and ECW and marked the end of the Invasion storyline. WWF's win allowed Vince McMahon to retain control and power over his company. This match was also a turning point for the McMahon family rivalry, as Shane's alliance lost. As a result of the Invasion, WWE's roster greatly expanded. WCW and ECW wrestlers were integrated into WWE, but this also led to the division of WWE into two separate brands. SmackDown, which had previously been WWF's main TV program, became one of the two new brands, along with Raw. This allowed for greater visibility for wrestlers and enabled the company to manage its operations across both brands. SmackDown was generally portrayed with a WCW-focused roster, while Raw remained WWE's historically dominant brand. Even though WCW and ECW wrestlers had specific characters, the legacies of these brands were gradually taken over by WWE. The Invasion, while one of WWE's most significant events, did not fully realize its potential. Many fans expected WWE to offer a larger unification and longer storyline. Instead, this merger ended within a year. WWE, however, fully took control of wrestlers from both WCW and ECW, which led to the creation of new characters and storylines. The Invasion was a crucial moment in WWE's history and led to major changes, such as the inclusion of new roster members, the creation of brands, and the beginning of new rivalries. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Also, feel free to share your thoughts on the Invasion storyline in the comments. What other WWE storylines would you like to see more content about? Don't forget to turn on notifications so you can instantly get notified about our new videos. See you in the next video. Goodbye.